This is a teaching moment.
I do.
All right, 7 o'clock.
All right, it's 7 o'clock, and this is the Bolton Board of Selectmen on Thursday, November 6, 2014. The first item on our agenda is a property tax classification hearing, and this hearing is held pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 56 of the Massachusetts General Laws, and it is so the Selectmen can make a determination on the factors to be used among the classes of real property, residential, open space, commercial and industrial, and personal property for fiscal year 2015 tax rate. So welcome the Board of Assessors.
Come on.
Why don't you come on up?
down.
All right.
Come on down, come on up.
How's everybody?
Good to see you again.
Eric?
Good, see you.
Mark, hi. Harry.
Hey, go on.
Let's start off football game.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Play ball. Yeah.
Good to see these guys probably once or twice a year. So.
Yeah.
You see me once. Nice to meet
Big
you.
claim, no hitting below.
Jeffrey, where are you, Jeffrey?
Play my hand over. So it's that time of year again. We come before you to give our recommendation on a split rate or single rate. Once again, the board would like to recommend a single rate throughout town.
No, thank you.
Just, so you out, anyone else?
David.
The audience wants it, so let's
Can you give me one more?
use everything.
Okay, sure.
So we had a pretty good year as far as valuations went. The market seems to be coming back a little bit, so valuations went up. We were pretty fortunate with some growth as well.
So it was pretty modest growth. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
It was
it's
modest.
up- it's up
Larry, it was
25
good.
Oh, I know,
Growth is good.
we've turned the corner,
Yes.
but
It's
it's
still very
slow.
modest.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
I mean,
But we're also using the
I'm
assessments as
smiling,
of
so.
Yeah.
the end of
We didn't
2013.
do it either.
Oh, wait, no, I understand.
So I highlighted just a couple key points. I mean, if we wanted to just get a tax rate on the residential side, similar to what we had last year of 2096, it would be a shift of 1% to the commercial side, which would equate to about a $1.13 increase to the commercial, industrial, personal property, and chapter designations. If we were looking to reduce to even just a flat $20 residential, on page 3, you'd see it highlighted in yellow, we'd have to do a 55% shift to commercial, industrial, personal property, and chapter lands, which would put them at a $32.52 tax rate. Overall, we still only have about 7.9, a little less than 7.9% commercial, industrial, personal property base. So that's still probably a third of what you would want to have if we were to consider a shift. I did have another quick little handout for you just to compare last year and this year's valuation basis, proposed tax rate.
Is that the redacted part?
I don't think.
You're so smart. Yep.
Just when you.
So on the left side, you'll see fiscal 14's valuation basis broken out by residential, commercial, industrial, personal property, with a comparison of fiscal year 15 on the right. So residential, we saw the overall residential value base, we had a 2.89 increase in valuation. But we also had a 2.5% decrease in the commercial base and a almost a 1.3 reduction in industrial. Personal property, we saw the increase. Obviously, the solar farm came into full valuation this year, so that accounts for that. Otherwise, we actually would have seen a decline in that as well.
You might see in addition to that, when the solar, if it does expand this year into next year.
Oh,
so,
right.
Just, that's problematic, we're not,
We haven't even sat down with them to
yeah, I
negotiate.
mean, we haven't negotiated, but it's on our agenda.
The overall levy is increasing about 1.4 million. Debt has decreased roughly 3.84%. We're looking at a proposed rate as of now, if you adopt a single rate of $20.98 for fiscal 15, which is just a little better than a 1% decrease from last year's tax rate. What does that mean for the average house value? Well, the average house value increased 2.64%. So in fiscal 14, we were $446,800. In fiscal 15, our average house value is looking to be $458,600. What that means in an overall average tax bill is about less than $150 per year, fiscal year increase, which is probably the most modest increase we've seen in quite some time.
No, and we've also sort of stopped the increase in the tax rate, and the tax rate has started to go down.
Well, that's simply because of the 2.5% increase in value.
But also we're,
Well, it's also because there was a fair
Well-
amount, town meeting voted to use some
Yes.
free cash
That's
towards
right.
our,
Yes.
plus your debt is starting to
Go down.
go down, so that also helps.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Good.
No, I think it's good news, and I think as you point out, the math, you need such a massive increase in
Yes.
the
Yeah.
commercial rate
To
to
make it-
feel any impact on residential. It makes no sense.
At 9% or 8%.
Yeah, we'd lose what little commercial base we have,
Right.
which we don't want to do.
And not get any more.
Yeah.
No, so it's good.
And there's still quite a vacancy in town, even with the existing commercial buildings, so to go to a split, even if we decide to do that, would be detrimental
Right.
to people who are trying to rent the existing space.
Right. Okay. No, sounds good to me.
So we do have approved values by the Department of Revenue.
Yes.
Some values are all approved. Our new growth is approved. So if you adopt a single tax rate, I do have the form for you to sign tonight, and then we would be ready to submit for the rest of the recap tomorrow.
That's
Which
great.
would take-
We're ahead of
We are a little ahead of
schedule.
schedule.
That's great.
Right, right.
That's
A
great.
few weeks ahead, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
I'll move that we adopt the single tax rate as listed on the sheets here.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, do you want to get them now? or-
Yeah, if I could just get quick signatures on that.
Get off.
And what's the name, what's the
That form is called the LA5.
LA5 and
But she knows numbers.
There's an LA
Yes, yes.
4, 5, 12 that all have to be submitted after you sign for approval.
what's our date here?
It's 6,
Yeah.
11/6.
And I note that we have, that on this form, the assessors are informing the selectmen that the excess levy capacity is $560,633, which is
Correct,
probably more than $300,000 more than what it was last year, right?
correct.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
that's good. That's also very good news.
Yes, sir.
Now, if we had taxed to the full levy limit, we would be...
In other words, we are not taxing to the full.
Yeah, right.
Thanks.
That's right.
And it would seem, just from looking at the real estate market, that 2014 was better than 2013, and that we're going to see
Yes.
increased values next year, is that?
It seems
Or
that
is
way.
it too early to say that?
From the few that I've seen, yeah, obviously we don't have a close of the calendar year, so I
Right.
can't see the last quarter, but from what I've seen, it seems like we're on an upward trend.
Yes.
Still, so.
Yeah. Question?
No, I do packets to all the new people that are moving into Bolton with Neighbor to Neighbor and Bolton Local. And it's amazed me how the market never really went down here. Last year I had put out 72, this year I'm over 75. So, I mean, in just watching the market that way, it seemed that there wasn't much of a,
Yeah, the number of sales has definitely been stable, which is good.
yeah.
Excellent.
Any
you,
further
Jim.
questions of us?
Sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
No?
Thanks very much.
Keep it up.
Thanks for your time.
We're just formulate figures.
Yeah, I know.
We have nothing to do with this.
We're just the messenger.
It's easier to be the messenger with good news there, no?
That's so true.
We
Yes.
got that one right.
Yes.
All right, the next item on our agenda is a presentation by NSTAR representatives regarding plans for natural gas from the proposed Worcester North lateral pipeline. Is there someone here from NSTAR? Sure, why don't you come up and introduce yourselves, and
Good evening, I'm Dave Elaine. I am the manager of gas sales and marketing at NSTAR.
I'm Tim Poland, principal system analyst from the gas engineering group at NSTAR Gas.
all right, well, thanks, and we appreciate your coming in. This was something that the board requested because as we were sort of learning about this Kinder Morgan's plans and this Worcester North lateral, we learned from Kinder Morgan that it was a request for service from NSTAR that they said was prompting the Worcester North lateral, so we wanted to get an understanding of what your plans are and what's going on.
Okay. One of the things that you've all seen, and maybe not so much in Bolton because you don't have too much natural gas, but we've been on a tear with gas sales for the last 2 or 3, 4 years once the price of oil flipped in natural gas's favor. And the Worcester metropolitan area is one of our largest areas that we serve. And as a result, our analysis is showing that we're running out of gas. Now, we have a take station in the southern side of Worcester. We also have what we call our Worcester feed, which sends gas into the Worcester area from our Hopkinton facility. And to balance it off and to provide for future growth, when the Kinder Morgan pipeline came along, we started inquiries to find out if there was additional capacity. The sketch that we've given you has pretty much an outline of what we're talking about. The existing pipeline that runs through Bolton is called the Pittsburgh lateral. And Kinder Morgan proposed that we come off of that and run a pipeline to our proposed location in the North Worcester, West Boylston town line. So there's still a lot of negotiations going on with this. I saw some of the signs, stop the pipeline. I know there's a lot of opposition to that. We're looking at some other potential alternatives. There are 2 pipeline companies in Massachusetts that serve our territory. Tennessee, but with a northern route, and Algonquin, Spectra, which services the southern route. And we're actually negotiating with both of them in various ways for a long-term delivery of natural gas. So, in a nutshell, that's basically why we're here and why we approached Kinder Morgan to discuss with them additional capacity. The current Pittsburgh lateral ends in Clinton, or at Pittsburgh, up further north. and it's at capacity now. There is no more available gas off of that line. And if the pipeline does not go through, then we're stuck. We won't be able to get any additional gas supplies into the northern Worcester area. So that's basically where it stands right now.
When you use the terminology take station, what is that?
That's where we take pipeline gas from Tennessee or Spectra and run it through their meters into our own system.
And currently, you're getting gas into Worcester from two different locations?
Two different locations.
And this location that you've identified when you look at the Kinder Morgan maps, it seems to be, where is it? It's up on Northeast Cutoff in Worcester, and you look at the satellite view and there's nothing there. There's Allegro Microsystems, there's an elementary school, and is this something you would plan to build?
Yes, that's correct. We don't have that take station there now.
And who gets to approve that take station? I mean, what's the permitting required for you to, say you want to do this and Kinder Morgan's on board and you make a deal, is it the DPU, is it just Worcester zoning, who decides a take station?
Yeah, it would be in the town where the facility is placed. And I believe right now, we're looking at the several locations that are potential for sale that we could attach and purchase. And one I think is in West Boylston and one I think is in Worcester.
And is there, but your goal is to have gas coming in from the north? I mean, is that?
Yes. What we currently have coming out of our southern take station is what we call our crosstown feeder. And it's a high-pressure main that runs centrally all the way up through from south to north in Worcester, and it ends pretty much near the Worcester town line. And that's what we're servicing now the entire city with, as well as Holden, West Boylston, and the surrounding areas. What this will do is it will give us a terminal point at the northern end of our high-pressure feed. So now we'll be able to feed in two directions into the Worcester area. And it'll be great from a standpoint of capacity, because it'll double our capacity to serve customers in the area, but also it'll give us the redundancy we need to also have a very good supply of gas. In case we have a problem at a facility, the other facility could supply it.
But you haven't made a deal yet with Kinder Morgan.
No.
And so when they're saying they're going to, at some point, make a presentation that they have contracts in place to FERC to say they need this, that, as far as you're concerned, that hasn't happened yet.
That's correct. They've been working on that since we've been talking with them over a year, and they have some percentage of firm pipeline capacity that they have to have commitments from customers. I don't know, 50, 60%, I don't know what the actual percentage is, and then take that to FERC and then go forward with that. And I don't know where they stand with regards to their percentage.
But that's for their big pipeline, but for the Worcester, I mean, this lateral, you're the only customer at the end of it.
That's correct, that's
Right.
correct, yeah. And we're small potatoes compared to all the other customers that they're talking to. They're looking at power plants and tying in eventually to the Dracut terminal, which is the northern terminus from the hub line that feeds into the southern part of the greater Boston area, and also the Maritimes and Northeast line, which comes down through Maine. So they're trying to build a larger network to get a lot of natural gas from the Pennsylvania, New York, Marcellus Shale area up into this area to service these customers.
What if there was some way to run a pipeline, say, along Route 190, and if whatever the state or federal approvals made that happen, and would that be a route into Worcester that you could use? I mean, if that was, because I mean, some of the concern that folks have here is you have towns like Bolton and Berlin which don't have gas service, which are being sort of torn up to get gas down to Worcester, where you already have gas, but you say you want more. And you can see there's some resentment there. There's alternative routes down.
Absolutely.
Are those things you could work with?
Well, part of the problem that we've had with our system since I've been doing the system analysis work is that we haven't had a lot of additional capacity to expand into these areas. And that's been holding us back. Now, whether or not in the future we'll be able to expand into these areas, currently we have no plans on the table to expand into these northern areas any more than we have, because we're limited in our gas supply and our pressures. This will allow us to expand in the area. We're not sure if or when that would ever happen. That would be really from customer support, but
But when you say we're expanding, you're not proposing under any scenario to provide gas to folks in Bolton, are you?
that's correct, that's correct. Right now, we can't, basically, and with the completion of this pipeline and our take station, we could, but we don't have any plans on the table to expand into these areas at this time.
But that would be one of the potential future benefits of a pipeline going through the community, is that we would have a strong desire to expand, for example, down the main corridor and potentially down side streets. Basically, look at the population centers, the Neshoba High School, the middle school, the town facilities, churches, residential customers. So if this project did go through, we would have every intent to try to expand gas through the parts of the community where you deemed it would be wise to expand.
Well, the high school is probably 200 yards from the pipeline. And Kinder Morgan implied that you could tap in today to the existing pipeline that runs through Bolton. Is that not true?
It's high pressure.
Well, it is high pressure. We would actually have to build a regulating facility there to knock it down from the pipeline pressure to a usable pressure of 60 pounds. We've done that in the past. Matter of fact, the town of Dover has a similar arrangement in their high school and middle school complex. We take gas directly off the pipeline with a small take station facility right there with a meter, and we service their complex. So that definitely could be done.
Well, and it could be done, whether or not this lateral goes forward.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
If I could, just to follow up on a point that you made, though, that what the chairman said was if an alternate route was to take advantage of existing easements and run down the 190 corridor, from an engineering perspective, there isn't anything that would preclude you from making that work, is there?
No, not at all. Kinder Morgan has proposed this particular route. When I talked to them fairly recently, several weeks ago, they said that there's nothing cast in concrete. If there's a few areas that you want them to avoid or bypass or whatever. But the biggest problem that I think they faced in running this line is the reservoir. The Clinton line, which feeds down into Clinton off of this lateral, is aimed right directly in the middle of the reservoir. And they obviously can't go any further in that direction. They either have to go over the Wachusett Reservoir to the north or from the south. And that's really the geographical impediment to doing anything right now.
Well, that wasn't the reason they gave us that they couldn't extend the Clinton pipeline, but that's,
That's fine, yeah. So if,
Well, it would certainly be a longer run, I think.
Yeah.
Whether or not they explain that or not, I don't know. But if you just look at a map and you could see how far the reservoir encompasses that area,
yeah.
We're not running through the reservoir, obviously.
I mean, there are other places around. I mean, there's NSTAR has a big, Mass Electric has a big easement coming down through town, down into Berlin. And so there are other places in town that they could look at that are already encumbered so in a lot of ways they're being a very bad neighbor by just saying, this is the line, if you want to nudge it a little bit here or there, go for it, but other than that, this is where we're going to go. And they really haven't, they were surprised that Mass Electric had an easement in town. They said, oh, we'll have to look at that. And when they got to Boylston, it's like, oh, Shell had a gas pipe, had an oil pipeline in town. Oh, maybe we should look at that. But, they haven't done their homework in any town. So they're certainly not being good neighbors. And that nudging good neighbors, you guys need to look at them and say, you guys need to come up with a better route that keeps the towns happier. Because you guys are the ones who are in the state. If the Northeast Pipe isn't, if the Northeast Pipeline or Northeast Direct isn't approved, what would you do to? I mean, so how would you feel? Would you still be putting in another take station, and where would you be getting, or if you decided to go with the other pipeline company?
The other pipeline.
Which is south of you, so,
Yeah.
so how would you be feeding the north side of Worcester in that case?
The Southern Spectrum has already looked at a proposed route of approximately 20 miles from the Hopkinton facility where they currently have pipe gas, all the way up to this facility here in northern Worcester. From our system standpoint, for the reliability, we really need a facility on the northern side of Worcester to take advantage of the crosstown feeder that we built, so that we have, basically, from a gas flow situation, when you have one source feeding a 10-mile pipe, it's a certain size.
Yeah.
When you have two feeding into that 10-mile pipe, in effect, you double the capacity of that line. And it's from an engineering standpoint, it's really the only place we can put a take station that will benefit our system in the best way.
So it should be made clear that these gentlemen are not dictating where the pipeline goes. These
Right,
gentlemen
right,
are
but-
just saying that they need more gas.
Right.
Well, but they're dictating the end point.
Yes,
Right, they're dictating the end point.
Yes, but as the only customers for this line, they can also look at Kinder Morgan and say, you guys need to change the route a little bit
Exactly,
to keep the towns happier.
Oh, absolutely. We can certainly request that.
And so
Matter of fact,
the town isn't happy.
Well, from what I
We have enough.
well, from what I understand, there's stop the pipeline signs all the way from Route 2,
Oh, yeah.
the Mass
Yeah.
line, New York line, all the way east to Draken. Matter of fact, my brother lives in Tingsboro. The proposed pipeline is gonna go right through the farm, right behind his backyard, so he's not too thrilled either. But that,
You're right, and it's that sort of thing. I mean, the route they have proposed now is going through some farms. It's going through some conservation land, some vernal pool areas, things like that. That it's not that hard for them to look at what's here and pick a different route.
I wouldn't want them to go through the winery.
Well, okay, they're going through the horse farm at the top of the hill, which is, from the town's perspective, just as bad. So,
We have, there are a lot of folks here that are interested, and so I think we can maybe open this up to some questions from the public.
Bob Cohen, Harvard Road.
Yeah.
I have two questions. The first question is, the way my current understanding is that all the residents of Massachusetts are going to be charged a tariff on their electric bills to pay for the pipe ahead of time. There's a movement to get that changed. There might be a statewide referendum on that. If there wasn't a tariff, would that change your mind in any way about using this northern lateral?
Dave, do you have any idea on the tariff?
No, I mean, there's been a lot of proposals. I think at the end of the day, if we don't get incremental gas to Massachusetts, everyone in this room, including myself, will pay more for our electric bills. And just so you know, we're part of a bigger electric company. We're a small gas company. So at the end of the day, more gas is needed to run the power plants in Massachusetts. As far as the proposals, honestly, I don't know what they are. But clearly, we just saw one electric company had a 37% rate increase November 1st, and there'll be others coming, and it's really all attributed to the power plants and really getting gas to serve those power plants or other alternative fuels. So I know I didn't answer your question because I don't know what the specific increases.
I didn't know how it would affect your economics with Kinder Morgan, because if you guys pay for the pipeline ahead of time and Kinder Morgan pays for it ahead of time, that's a different rate structure for you, so it would be more expensive for you to get the gas.
Yeah, as far as the lateral itself, paying for the lateral and take station, that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we've got a system. We need to make sure it's reliable, it's stable, we have dual feeds. Right now, we're turning down, quite a bit of customers who'd like our product in West Boylston, in Worcester, in other areas. And again, we would like to expand, we would like to grow. I run the sales group, and clearly, I'd rather help convert more customers than discourage them and say we don't have either main in front of your property or we don't have capacity. And we don't have that issue today in most of our areas, but we are getting to the point in the city of Worcester, in some of those surrounding towns, where we will not be able to expand the system.
One of the things that we are doing, because there are two pipeline companies, we are negotiating essentially with both to meet our needs for this gas. And we're hoping that that competition will try and keep whatever pricing structure either company has a little on a level playing field, so that, you know, we can get the best deal from whoever we're gonna wind up hopefully getting gas from.
Okay. Second question I have, the lateral is gonna be a larger pipe than the lateral that's coming off of. It's a larger diameter pipe.
They told us that, this was way back, maybe it's changed, but they were quoting 12-inch. And the Fitchburg lateral is also 12-inch.
I don't remember what they said exactly, but it came up in our meeting with them, that the pipe, the new lateral is 4 inches larger diameter, or radius, whatever they go by, than the existing pipe. I was wondering if you knew the reason for that.
No, I don't.
I thought the numbers were that this new lateral was 12 inches, but that our existing one is 10.
I thought, I think that's what I was going.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they had quoted us 12, but that would be a function of their pressure and our flow, and I haven't really looked at how they've done their analysis yet. But my own personal analysis, based on the pipeline pressures that I've been able to obtain off the Fitchburg lateral, are looking at us requiring a 12-inch main. So if they've changed it to 10, I'm not aware of it, and I'd have to...
No, I mean, 10 is all in the ground. 10 is in the ground right now.
Oh, the existing
Fitchburg.
Fitchburg.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
10.
Oh, they told us that was 12 also, but...
No, that's 10, and we asked them actually at our meeting on June 26th. You've got a 10 feeding into 12, how is that working? And that was one thing they said they'd get back to us, and I don't think they ever did.
No, well, again, I pretty much already answered that question for you. Because of our own crosstown feeder, right now, that 10-inch is only feeding one way, and it dead ends up at Fitchburg. And the 10-inch is the 10-inch capacity, or 12. Like, they told me it was 12, but then again, maybe they didn't know. But either way, it doesn't make any difference to us from a flow standpoint. They can't sell us any more gas off of their existing line. Now, if they complete that Fitchburg lateral up to their new pipeline, now they're gonna have gas feeding both ways. And that basically takes that 10-inch line and makes it a 20-inch line capacity-wise. Just like the reason that we have to do a northern Worcester station to feed into our crosstown feeder, so that we have two sources, north and south. We have, our crosstown feeder is a combination of 12 and 16-inch lines. And that, with two feeds feeding into that system, basically doubles the capacity.
And what capacity do you currently have, and what capacity will this lateral bring you up to?
Well, the whole idea is actually to duplicate our existing capacity with future capacity added as we require. The whole idea for the baseline design right now is to duplicate the flow from our southern facility. So think of it this way. Right now, we have a feed coming in from the east, and we have a feed coming into Worcester from the south. And under winter peak conditions, we need both of those feeds. If we have a problem with our system, we're gonna have a problem with our customers.
And how many decatherms do you use in peak times?
Well, I'm not a decatherm guy, that's the supply planning group,
Yeah.
but I deal in MCFH. And we have our southern take station designed for about 5,000. Also, our Hopkinton facility is designed for about 5,000 MCFH.
So the new one will bring in 10? Is that what you-
The new one will, well, first of all, our Worcester load is 10,
Yeah,
say roughly. And the additional take station will bring in an additional 5. So we'll have, right now, but the load stays 10. But the whole idea is that if we have a problem, because Worcester needs 10, and we only have 2, we have only 5, so someone's gonna run out of gas. But we'll have 3 sources, each 5, and if one of them has a problem, Worcester still stays live. So that's the main reason why this location is so important for us on the north side of Worcester. It's all based on our total system design for the town. And we've duplicated this kind of design in other areas. Our New Bedford system is exactly the same way. We have 2 take stations, one in the southern part of New Bedford, one in the northern part, and we have another LNG facility that feeds in from the east. And that system is extremely reliable because under a normal winter day, we only need 2 of those 3 sources to operate. And that gives us the capacity that we need for future growth and the reliability and redundancy we need to maintain the gas.
Just one quick thing, and then I'll be quiet.
You are kind of monopolizing the public segment here,
Those are good
but I don't see other questions.
Those are good questions, so I don't mind answering.
So, you guys have been good neighbors, and hopefully we've been good neighbors. And obviously, this pipeline is not good for our town. We're not going to get the benefit. It's very hard to pipe this town because we're so rural, so it's economic. We can't even get FiOS or anything like that because it just doesn't pay. But since we'd like to be good neighbors with you, and you'd like to be good neighbors with us, your input with Kinder Morgan would be helpful in getting them to change the route. Because if the route was changed, it'd be much less of a battle for everybody. If the route's not changed, it's going to be a battle, and everybody's going to lose. So hopefully, we can get a commitment from you to try to help them see an alternate route.
Oh, absolutely. And since I found out that there were some potential other routes that they might not have been aware of, I can certainly bring that to their attention. Because they're interested, just like us, in selling their product and trying to be good neighbors as well.
So most of their product is going up to the Maritimes. It's not staying in Massachusetts.
Well, it's interesting. There's been some interesting developments up on the north side. I think that they're even going to re-energize the LNG facility offshore this year. District Gas in Everett has been a major player in the past, but because of the price differential with LNG, they can sell it overseas much, much cheaper, and that's what a lot of the companies are trying to do right now. So yeah, there's probably a little bit of that involved with that, and that's why I think Kinder Morgan is looking at that Northeast Pipeline project, to try and push more gas and sell more gas. But right now, we're stymied, within our own little world of the northern Worcester area. And, we'd love to expand into some of these towns. Just, 2 years ago, we actually started expanding into Sterling. There was a facility up there, an asphalt plant. We hooked up the town hall, I think, and a couple of schools.
103 houses.
We ran 18 miles of pipe, I think, was it?
It's 8.
8 miles of 8-inch plastic main right up the center of Sterling, and we're still getting additional customers coming off of that. So, and again, that was a situation where we could just barely take them, and it took a lot of analysis on our part to try and get them in there. But that's pretty much all we have right now. We are doing more work in the northern Worcester area. We're expanding and putting in another regulating station in Lincoln Street in Worcester, and that's going to help us get gas up into the Shrewsbury area, which will in turn help further north in West Boylston and Bolton up in that area.
Dave, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One is, you've been very helpful. I can hardly expect you to be objective in answering that. So what we've heard tonight is why the more gas would be good for your company. You can expand. And but that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as what's the best thing for the general public. Bolton, to be sure, but because of what Bob says, but in general, we haven't heard anything, and I wouldn't expect you to champion other sources, even though they might be better for the general public, but that's just one thing. The other question I had was export. You mentioned exporting, and it's my sense that if it's exported, for instance, to Europe, it's my understanding that prices are much higher in Europe than they are in the United States, and so doesn't that put U.S. customers for gas or for electricity generated by gas in competition with a market that will pay a lot more for it? And so the gas suppliers, the wholesalers or whatever it is, are going to raise their prices as soon as they can. I don't know how long you get a guaranteed price in your contract when that comes, but I have to think ahead about this export aspect of the thing. You mentioned they weren't sure it's a 50 or 60% or whatever amount of the capacity they had contracts for, but let's say it's 50, and so 50 would be exported, presumably. And if they get more dough overseas, presumably they might even, when your contract runs out, deny you a renewal or something, if they can sell it cheaper, something more, sell it more profitably somewhere else.
Okay, well, I'll do the best I can. I don't want to say my age, but I am past retirement age, so I can be quite objective. And I'm still working, but The economics are really a very interesting part of this. One of the things that we have and are very fortunate to have in our system are our LNG facilities. And we have no control over the price of natural gas, obviously. I mean, that's a huge market, it's a worldwide market, but it does affect our reliability because for the last several years, the district gas facility has not been importing any LNG because they've been selling it overseas. And it's not just either Kinder Morgan or Spectra, it's anybody who's involved in this energy business. And we've had some pressure problems on our lateral feeding the Cambridge-Somerville area because typically the Spectra pipeline is backstopped by district gas and they've had no LNG to sell. So the pricing of natural gas overseas does definitely have a bearing on our system. But we're forced to buy whatever we can at whatever price we can so that in January, the people, our customers, have heat. And you don't have heat, within 12, 24 hours, you're gonna have frozen pipes. It's very, very bad, as you all know. So one of the things that we are forced to do is pay whatever the market will bear. But the way we mitigate it is with our LNG facilities. We have 3.5 billion cubic feet of natural gas, liquid natural gas in storage. And it's a great system because it allows us to use that storage to offset high peak winter natural gas prices. Every winter, especially if there's a large cold snap or like that Polar Express that comes down, spot natural gas prices go up. When they go up, we inject natural gas that we bought in the summertime cheaply. So in the summer, when there isn't much of a call for natural gas, we buy it at a cheap price, we liquefy it, we store it in our tanks, and we dump it back into our system in January when the prices are high. And we're unique in almost all of the local distribution companies in Massachusetts because we have that kind of capability. And I could go into more detail how that works, but suffice it to say, N-Star gas is probably the cheapest gas you can actually ever get compared to National Grid or some of the other companies around, because we have that LNG storage facility. Yes, sir.
Okay. In 2008...
Could you identify yourself, please?
Sorry? Jim Hollow, Pine Road. Thank you. And I'm going to ask a question about the 2008 Massachusetts Global Warming Solutions Act. As a goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 25% by 2020, by 90% by 2050. How do we reconcile your attempt to expand gas sales with that goal?
Well, I can expand it very quickly by saying that it's a focus of our electric company to purchase as much solar or wind power as required by law, and they will be complying as time goes forward. The electric company is a lot different from us. They have those kinds of regulations, and the only example I can give you is the Cape Wind project. Our CEO at the time, when the Cape Wind was first proposed, basically was not interested in buying any electricity off of those windmills because of environmental issues, just with putting them in the bay over in Long Island Sound or Cape Cod Bay, wherever they were going. And that was part of the legislation that was passed that's actually forced our company to buy that wind power at much higher cost than we could by normal means. And the legislation that you mentioned is actually going to be very good for the environment, but you're all going to pay more for it.
Yeah,
So,
because natural gas doesn't improve the greenhouse emissions of oil.
no, but the legislation is cutting off the greenhouse gases, and they're going to be making alternative sources much more, by law, require for us to buy.
And that's good for your electric company because you distribute electricity. So you should be getting more renewables. You should be encouraging people to use this renewable electricity for space heating, for geothermal, and other
Yeah.
efficiency techniques, so you don't have to expand your gas requirement, you can do it in other ways.
Well, it gets, again, to economics, we have, I believe, still on the electric side, billing. If you want to check off to have just green energy and pay a higher price for it, you can do that. But we don't get a lot of people checking off higher pricing. So that's why some of the legislation is forcing the utility companies to buy green power. And eventually, maybe legislations will force us to do the same thing. But right now, a lot of our legislation that affects the gas industry is really on maintenance and repair. We have, in a lot of our older cities, Worcester, New Bedford, Cambridge, we have a lot of old cast iron main that is problematic with leaks. And you occasionally see articles in the Globe how National Grid has thousands of leaks, and Star has thousands of leaks. Well, we probably do have thousands of leaks, but we're knocking them off as fast as we find them, and our whole system is now geared, based on legislation, to actually replace a lot of our old cast iron mains. There's another engineer in our office who's looking at over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be replacing close to 200 miles of existing cast iron main, leaking or not, just to replace it all with plastic that will probably last forever.
All right.
They're not exactly
why don't
styrofoam, but...
I think we've already gone over here, but if you have maybe just one more question.
My name is Elizabeth Calcanny. I live up on Old Bay Road. You seem willing to at least entertain this notion of an alternative route. Is there anything we can do to help you with that? There are many of us who've been working on this issue since the summer, and since we think it's a good idea, is there something we can do to help?
Well, if you have some, like this right-of-way with the Shell Oil, and if you have information about that, I'd be very interested in getting it, because that is something I can take to Kinder Morgan.
They know about it.
Yeah, I mean, and that was brought up in public meetings. We talked about that.
Yeah.
You know, but
They don't have it.
To the extent it comes from a customer, maybe it carries more weight.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Now that we know about it, that would certainly be something we could discuss more intelligently with them, and with an independent source of information. If they've changed it a little bit, we'd be able to see that.
Well, maybe if we could get your contact information.
I'll give you my card, and you can contact me directly.
Thank you.
We just had one real quick one. One real quick extra question.
All right, but
just
real
wondered- I
quick,
just wondered-
they're focused.
They're excellent questions.
I know, but we have
I just
other
wonder,
things on the agenda.
when do you have to have a contract, or does Kinder need to have a contract with you?
Timing has already been pushed out. They were originally talking to us last year about 2017. Now it's 2018.
They have to show in advance, before they can get the FERC approval.
Yes.
They have to show that they can sell X amount,
That's correct.
and so they have to have a contract with you
That's right.
and
That's
other
right.
people.
That's right.
And so,
They don't have anything from us yet.
Oh, they told us.
but when do you expect?
What they have is a commitment, but not a contract.
Okay.
All right?
But they're gonna be before FERC before 2017. I mean,
Well, hopefully they will be to present whatever they have, but they're talking 2018 for a completion date. So I don't know when they're going to FERC.
they haven't told you when they have to have your contract.
No.
That's for the smaller pipe, right?
Yeah, this is just for our little piece of it.
Okay, they're not gonna even build the smaller one if they don't get FERC approval on the big one.
That's correct.
Right, because if they
That's
get
correct.
FERC approval on the big one, they're gonna build the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have to assume.
But so it's almost, your contract is almost moot.
well, it's not even a contract.
No, it's important
No,
because
it's-
they have to show that they get a percentage of
Yeah.
the pipeline capacity.
All right, okay, enough of the anarchy here.
Democracy, Larry, democracy.
I'll go through the chair. It's a, well, no, I think it's been very, very helpful, and I think you're going to be hearing from folks, and we appreciate your willingness to maybe pass on some suggestions to Kinder Morgan.
Instead of handing out your contact rate, can we just get that information through Dawn?
Well, Liz,
I take Dawn, I can distribute that.
I have his card.
I can distribute them.
Here's my card. I didn't have it before.
Yeah, could you make sure that
Yes,
these people
absolutely.
know my contact information?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any extra handout? I'll talk.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, sure. Nice meeting you.
Thanks a lot.
have another one of your cards?
Sure.
Thank you, Board of Selectmen.
What was your last name?
Sure. I'll give you my card.
Did you get one, Terry?
Something we picked up last week's meeting. So we can
It's
share
okay,
it.
I was just there asking for,
About your commitment with Kinder Morgan on the smaller pipeline, and I was wondering.
Yeah, maybe you can do
I know, but I need to cover the rest of this meeting. No, I realize that. Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure what's next on there.
No, it is.
I don't know where it's gonna tell us. Yes.
No, what's next is,
Next item on our agenda is a public hearing to act on the application of Condyne Capital Partners for a site plan review to construct a 2,500 square foot assisted living facility. And this site plan review is under section 250.23 of the code of the town of Bolton. Yeah, no. Let's see, how do I want to...
Drop it over here,
Or maybe use the chair there? Yeah.
You guys step in the hall so we can
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Dibb. I'm a civil engineer with Condyne Engineering Group, representing the applicant, Condyne Capital Partners, for the project at 580 Main Street in Bolton. The site is the existing Bolton Office Park, which is this yellow building on the site plan. It's currently approximately 100,000 square foot office building, two-story office building, existing on site. It is currently about 45% occupied, 45 to 50% occupied. Just give you a little bit more locus. This is Main Street, Bolton. This is the Bolton Manor facility. This is some town gardens in the back. Historically, access has been provided to those gardens out back. This site has a main driveway in. Existing conditions, there's a large parking lot in the back, some parking in the front, as well as the access drive to the Bolton Manor, and some existing parking. I do have an existing plan here. I think so. So there's existing parking throughout the facility. What we're proposing tonight is an assisted living facility in the rear portion of the property. It would actually be subdivided off into two separate lots. The existing lot's 39 acres. Would be subdivided into approximately a 20-acre lot and a 19-acre lot. The assisted living facility would meet building setbacks, zoning setbacks, things like that. It would be served. It'd be the footprint of that building is approximately 25,000 square feet. It would have 60 bedrooms in it, as well as other amenities like a kitchen, dining area, things like that that typically support a facility like this. We would also be modifying the site somewhat with a covered drop-off area, drive-through. There'd be some parking maintained in this area where there's an existing parking lot, as well as all this parking would be maintained. The access to the back property would also continue to be available. It's actually written into the special permit that exists that goes along with the property, so that would continue to be available throughout the site. We've also, through meetings with the planning board, I'll just go touch base on where we are with some of the other permitting. We've been in front of the planning board a number of times. They had a site walk. We've incorporated some things I'll get into with them. We're currently in front of conservation as well. The consultant that we have to review the drainage design and drainage impacts has submitted a review letter. Essentially, we had some back and forth, some revisions of that. They've essentially approved the drainage as it's designed and so that it meets stormwater management policy. And, now we've also had a meeting in front of the design review board to discuss features that they look at, some of the architectural features. I do have an elevation I can show you next. But at the planning board, some things we've incorporated through discussions with them is some pretty substantial walkways, definitely access all the way. There's currently no sidewalk from out on Main Street to the rear of the site. So that walkway would tie in both the Bolton Manor and the assisted living facility, as well as the office building. Also a walkway along the front of the property over to the parcel that heads towards the new bank proposal.
So it goes up to the lacrosse field there?
Yes. Yep.
Goes to the property line and stops at the moment.
Where does the walkway get once it gets to the driveway to the Bolton Manor? You've got it in coming to the Bolton Manor driveway, but I didn't see it coming out. It comes in there.
We are providing a walkway this way, but it also continues the assisted living as well as continues up to the road. We've also proposed to provide an easement for an additional 15 parking spaces that would be available for the Bolton Manor. Historically, their functions and when needed, they have used this property's parking in this area. It's been shared essentially for years. So we have looked at providing additional parking for the Bolton Manor.
Where are those proposed 15 slots, where are they shown?
Right now, this is the driveway into the Bolton Manor, their existing parking spaces. We're proposing right off, there's already the existing drive aisle, so it's minimal work to install those parking spaces.
So you're going to be granting an easement, but that's basically...
Correct, that's what we've proposed. I understand there's some questions regarding that, will still be discussed at an additional planning board hearing, how that
Yeah, no, actually, I was at a planning board hearing and I was asked off the top of my head whether, the town could pave that, right? And I go, well, yeah, maybe we could, but I'm not sure that's the right answer.
Correct. So, it's, how that all takes place is still to be determined, I guess. But we propose that as a way to, on the other hand, we also haven't said we've limit, or, say you can't, put no parking signs up here for Bolton Manor either. There's still would be site parking on the site for them when needed.
What about fire suppression inside this facility?
It will be sprinklered. The full mechanical, electrical, plumbing design, fire protection design is not complete yet. So there'll be either, there's a fire pump out at the basin in front that the fire department is allowed to use. They've stated there's over 1 million gallons available in that pond. So that, it will be sprinkled. Some of the details haven't really been completed yet at this point, but there's every intention to meet the fire code for sprinklers and requirements. So that's, in general, that's the proposal.
Yeah, I think the fire chief was in talking about that, either that hearing, which I think we were all at, or we're at the bank where they discussed that the capacity of that fire pond would be sufficient to deal with sprinkling, that facility as well as if needed to put a fire, say, at the bank or some adjacent property.
You mentioned you had you had a plan showing the building design.
This is just the detailed plan, things that have gone through in front of conservation, some of the buffers and different things. This blue line is actually where the existing pavement is. So a lot of development is in existing developed areas. So we're not putting it back in wetlands or disturbing wetlands or anything like that. And this is a rendering we prepared. Shows general architecture at this point. When we went to the design review board, they said they actually commented that it was a very good start. We don't have their report yet. We expect it on the 10th of November. Little things like the window sizes, they might suggest a bigger window or, a wider trim or something like that. But in general, the roof lines, the features that we've provided, they were happy for the first go around.
One of the things within our bylaws in terms of site plan review, we're directed that we shall sort of incorporate the views of the design review. So where you haven't gotten their blessing yet, we may not be able to conclude this part of the process because that piece is missing.
One thing we're running into is we don't have a specific operator yet. Whether it's this assisted living company or that assisted living company. We feel we're trying to seek these permits to get marketability of the project. So we're in a little catch-22. The design review board was a little concerned that the operator was not on board. Because it could change a color or something, or it could, based on who that parent company is or who that operator is, there could be a feature that changes. So we're kind of, I think the report is going to say that we need to come back to them when an operator is on board. And now even the planning board is going that way, and we're trying to, I stated that I was more than happy to go back to the design review board for architectural features and things like that, part of that nature.
But I think it would be relatively easy. Obviously, to your point, you're sort of in a catch-22 unless you have the approval of this thing. How are you going to attract an operator? But I think in any approval can be conditioned on the fact that once you secure your operator, and if there needs to be alterations to, say, this basic design, that you'd need to come through and have that discussed. But I don't see any reason why, if you've met all the requirements at this point, why, the project could need to be approved or whatever it needs to be done, contingent upon, if operator A comes in versus operator B and they want to change, from yellow to blue or whatever the heck they want to do, that you would just go through the process and have it reviewed. So, are they implying that they will not close the hearing until you secured an operator?
Well,
but I think it's almost the reverse, that they're not committing to a building because they don't know what it's going to be like. But I think we need to approve. We can't just approve a concept. We need something there.
Well, we can approve what's being shown.
Sure, and then assume that if somebody wants to come in and make changes to that, it should be fairly straightforward. But
they're going to have to be sitting there and convince us that it's a good idea.
Right.
Almost any board will have either an insignificant change or a minor modification or a resubmittal, depending on what we're going to build.
So I think it can be approved based upon what we have here, and if someone decides to make a change, then the approval is conditioned on them needing to come through again with whatever changed. So you know,
Well, but they haven't, I guess we haven't heard from design review.
well, yeah, well, maybe we need
Yeah,
to wait to hear
yeah.
from that, but I mean,
Oh, yeah, no, I would think that we could certainly contemplate changes to a design, but there needs to be something, some there for an approval. Instead of just, you know, it's you know, you can't say because we don't have an operator, we don't really know what the building's gonna look like, so therefore you can't approve the design. I don't think that's a satisfactory answer.
To us, it feels like the operator, you know, is what level of skilled nursing facility, that stuff that goes into it. We would love to build this building, just as it is, right there. The site plan, we feel that it's working with the planning board, the amenities, and show you point out the walkway along the back with sitting areas and things like that. You know, we'd love to build this plan as is.
then that's what we should approve, I mean, that's what the approval should be contingent on, is that plan. I mean, to your point, you know, maybe some of the interior aspects of the building might change, but they're not necessarily gonna take that design, which is sort of a wing design, and turn it into a hexagon or an oval, or, you know, want to put 3 stories on it, which they can't do anyway. So, you know, I think if there are changes, there'll be more probably interior changes than exterior changes, and you can always deal with the exterior changes.
Well, and I mean, to go a step further, my guess is whoever's running this will change over time anyway. So, you know, we can't guess what, you know, the third operator is going to want to change on the site. So,
Well, but my guess is once it's built, you know, you're not gonna make huge exterior architectural changes.
Right, but if they go and say, well, this is what's approved, you can take this as is, or we can go through the process through with all the boards to make the changes you want. Most people will probably say, good enough. You know, it's, you know, unless there's an egregious shortcoming that the potential operator identifies.
You know, one of the other issues under site plan review, we can require for, that a development impact study be done, which includes its environmental component, a fiscal impact component, community impact component, traffic component. Though I don't see that this is, I mean, given the scale of what's being proposed, I don't personally see that as being necessary for our consideration. But I do think, you know, I do think the input from the design review folks would be helpful. We had some other comments from the planning board. They mentioned signage, which actually is something that we should be looking at in site plan review, is signage, and I guess, you know, we don't have the details on that, you don't know what the signs are gonna say, but at least on a, you know, you could get it,
Conceptual basis.
exactly, yeah. And they had a comment about the sidewalk connection to the Clinton Savings Bank, but of course that's not your property. Though some of the Clinton Savings Bank did, they volunteered some funds for a future sidewalk the town could perhaps to put in front of the lacrosse field, but that's not something we can mandate.
It would be a nice gesture, but I think, you know, having the planning board require you to put a sidewalk on another property that's not under your control, they're going beyond their bounds as far as their mandate. And we've discussed that with them on the Clinton Savings Bank project, and we'll talk to them again about that. But perhaps making a contribution could go a long way.
Is there an exact contribution that the bank has made for this?
Their voluntary proposal was, I think, what, $5,000?
$5,000. It's small bills.
Mary, you had a comment?
Well, I was going to bring that up, was that Clinton Savings Bank very graciously offered $5,000 for us to extend that sidewalk, and that it would be a wonderful gesture if Condyne could do the same thing.
I don't know.
Do we have any other questions from the board before we open it up to the,
Well, I guess there was one other that sort of jumped out at me, and as I think we just discussed, I mean, in terms of the scope of this project, you know, having a lot of these reviews and impact studies and all that are probably not necessary. But item 3 in the planning board letter that was sent to us, the planning board is considering waiving the requirement for a traffic study. And the applicant would agree to provide a monetary donation to the town in lieu of the study. I don't think that's something that the planning board can do. That may be something that, you know, for something that the applicant might want to do something in lieu of something else, but I'm not sure that the planning board has the mandate of saying you can eliminate the traffic study, but, you know, give us some money instead. I don't think that's, I don't see the connection of that, and it's almost like a perverse form of extortion.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that, and I had very much the same opinion, and it also struck me that they were so adamant that they wanted the traffic study for the bank to move across the street, but now we're adding 20,000 square feet?
25,000.
25,000 square feet, plus all of the support staff for that, and they're saying, oh, we don't need a traffic study. I'm not quite sure what the rationale is there.
I don't either. But the item as it stands, I don't believe.
The item as it stands, I think they can either choose to waive the study or not. I think the rest of it is, they need to, you know, stop trying to be a profit center.
We did provide an ITE trip generation letter. This facility of this size should generate, I think it was 166 trips per day. So, you know, it's not a lot. It's almost, their threshold to actually require a traffic study is 100 written in their bylaw. So, you know, based on that, and I think what I said at one point was we'd rather get these sidewalks in, you know, coming in and spend the money there, not really funding other things, but, you know, working with the banner and getting the sidewalks in and different things like that.
Mary?
In defense of the planning board, the money they were asking for in lieu of, instead of a traffic study, I think a traffic study should be done. But that money would be spent to do a traffic study down the road once all the developments are in place in that area. That would be Salt Box, Clinton Savings Bank. So it wouldn't be just money in lieu of to go wherever. I mean, it was intended to go towards traffic study in the future for that area.
But I don't think, again, I don't think it's incumbent upon this applicant to be funding or partially funding a traffic study that may or may not occur in the future. It's just almost as bad as asking them to build a sidewalk on town property. You know, that's not part of their development.
I mean, the other thing is, well, it's at some point when the office building is hopefully more fully occupied, there may be a need for a study at that point. And it's been more occupied in the past, hasn't it?
Yes, unfortunately, Emulex, who had one of those big squares, there's 2 big squares, 2 floors, they moved out.
Right.
My understanding is that building's about 20% occupancy. Is that correct?
We did just get a new tenant that took, I think, almost 20,000 square feet or 15,000. So it's up at about 46%.
Oh, good.
So
good.
Yeah.
It's looking better than a year ago.
But it's been more full in the past, so this isn't, you know, we're not, this isn't a significant increase in historic traffic.
No.
Do we have other comments, questions? There.
Terry Abdalian, Von Hill Road, also co-president of Friends of Bolton Seniors. We've met, and I've been at several planning board meetings, and I'm here, and several of us are here to talk about the 15 parking spaces in front of the manor. And so in listening to your site plan review and however you would bless it or not, my concern would be that the parking won't have been resolved before the plan review is finished, because I can see that it's a difficult process, and I think it's very important for the board to understand the need for those parking spaces and have that be very much a part of your consideration and approval. So I can go through some history, and I can give you some information if you'd like about them, about it. I know that the whole question with easement is a legal question, but I think it's important to understand that that the manor houses the town of Bolton Senior Center, and activities do go on there, and there are significant number of people that come. And right now, the parking is inadequate, and it's been inadequate for years. And Condyne was gracious in helping figure out a solution for it by providing these 15 spaces. And over the period of time that this has been discussed, there have been changes in what can and cannot be done, and what people will and will not be able to do. So, initially, Condyne, it was my understanding, I think it was a general understanding, that they would be just providing that parking, paving it, grading it, and they had gone on a review of the area and had figured out that would be a perfect spot for parking, which it is. And then it was brought back, and then it was granted an easement to RCAP Solutions, which is probably not a good solution, or maybe grant an easement to the town, or maybe grade part of it and we pave it. So it needs to be resolved, is our feeling, and there are several of us here, before things are concluded, because the fear is that if it isn't, it won't get done. And the seniors in town and the utilization of this facility is really dependent on there being adequate parking. People now, if you could put, can you put that back up? So people now are walking, if you don't mind, using this parking lot here and walking across for overflow parking, because none of this parking exists. Just a small amount of visitor parking on either side here, are using this lot, walking across this grassed area, which is unsafe. And this has been discussed before with, I think, brought to your attention, but also to the town administrator, and walking across this area, which is unsafe, or in the winter having to walk out on the roadway and come in. And we're talking about people that are usually have ambulatory issues. I don't care what, seniors are 60 and over, and the people that utilize the senior center can be in their 80s and 90s, thank goodness. So that isn't, that's what's being done now. It's never been adequate. This is a beautiful, and it came from Condyne, beautiful solution, and I just hate to see it, because of difficulty, not really resolved. And because that's where our seniors go, that's the facility that is designated in the town for our seniors, and we have 20% of our populations over the age of 60, and I think it's important for the board to keep this in the forefront whenever as your decisions are being made.
Well, Terry, can I ask, why do you think that this has to be resolved as part of the decision? I mean,
because it's been offered. I mean, I think.
Why does this have to be something that has to be strongly considered in any of the boards approving the project? I mean, we're dealing with. I mean, Condyne and Flatley before them were very kind in allowing the use of their parking facilities, but I mean, that's a private facility. And if there is inadequate parking, then it should be the ability to try to figure out a solution, either themselves or with the condign and the developer.
Well, if I may just step back, so the parking spaces that the manor has are, I'm not going to speak for them, are probably though adequate for the residents in the manor. The difference here is that the town of Bolton rents and utilizes space for the senior center. When there are activities held there, senior center activities, for example, Tuesday Connections, which is what's going on now, there will be many, many more cars coming into there, and that has to be considered because that is the town's senior center. At the last Tuesday Connections, which was a couple weeks ago, one of the Council on Aging members, just on her own, counted the number of cars that were there because of Tuesday Connections. There were 27. People using a variety of places to park. There are only about 8 parking spaces for visitors. The manor was never built to house the senior center. Maybe these plans should have been done back then. Maybe the consideration, very possibly, the consideration for adequate parking for the senior center should have been back when the manor was opened and when it was envisioned as a senior center. I will go as far as to state, and I don't know if I'm alone on this, but if this can't be resolved, this is not an adequate place to hold senior center, to have the town of Bolton Senior Center if you don't have parking that's accessible to people. The Council on Aging now has a very active outreach worker who is bringing people, that's part of her job, is to help people out and then bring them into the senior center for activities. The Council on Aging, through the town vote, has hired an activity coordinator who started about a week ago, and her job is going to be having activities in the senior center, elsewhere as well. But certainly, that building is identified as the town of Bolton Senior Center. That's where seniors see that their activities are being held. It's important for the town, for you as selectmen, for the town to take responsibility for that and provide the adequate parking. Just because it hasn't been provided in the past, we've had a suggestion by Condon on how to solve it. I think we need to embrace that if we want to continue having senior activities at this location.
Is Bolton Manor, say we're, those parking spots there that are offered, we figure out a way to get those paved, and is Bolton Manor, will they maintain them and plow them and do everything, or is that something that, that's one of the problems with saying let's work out everything before the site plan approval is you've got a lot of
pieces.
There are a lot of variables, yeah.
I've had multiple discussions with the management from RCAP, excuse me, and the person responsible for property management will be coming out next week to walk the site with Erica and myself if I'm available, so she can understand what we're talking about is exactly as far as the location of the parking goes. And it was my argument to her, argument's not the right word because it wasn't like we had an argument. It was as I was making the case for the parking spaces to her, was my position that yes, it does benefit the Bolton Senior Center, but it doesn't only benefit the Bolton Senior Center because while their tenants, many of their tenants are also participants of the Bolton Senior Center, when the Senior Center is not open, there are many times when they get a lot of visitors there just to visit the residents, regardless of the Bolton Senior Center, especially on holidays, but not just holidays. So it's certainly in their benefit to embrace this as well. So I'm trying to motivate them to see the benefit in this, to get them to accept the easement has been generously offered by Condyne, and to have them construct the parking and maintain the parking and so forth. So you're right. There are multiple players involved, and not all the players are at the table right now.
Right. No, and I think the easement. It is. It's generous, but it creates complexity. As you say, the request for indemnification. It's like, okay, someone slips and falls on the ice there, and whose fault is that? Is that the town? Is that Bolton Manor? And in fact, it would seem to me simpler and maybe better than $5,000 for a sidewalk would be if you don't need that acreage as part of the development, is just to deed that over as opposed to,
An easement.
yeah, though, who would take it? Would the town take it? Would Bolton, we'd like to give it to Bolton Manor, but maybe they don't want it.
Well, the cleanest would be to see Bolton Manor take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, the town would own a strip of land that's landlocked, basically.
Yeah.
That benefits a property that we don't own.
Yeah, right, and I'm not suggesting that there's any need to give it, but it just seems like it's a simpler solution.
Excuse me, just in that statement, I don't agree with it, that it benefits a property we don't own, because that is the Bolton Senior Center, and so it does. Today. Well, of course, the ideal solution is build a standalone senior center, or, but that isn't happening at any, in the near future. I don't think that vision is on anybody's table.
My point is that the cleanest way to do it is just to have Bolton Country Manor.
I agree.
Just to,
With an option for 99.
Maybe we'll let some other future board work.
Could the parking area next to Bolton Manor there be expanded?
I don't think so. You mean that way?
Septic back there?
No, septic's out in front.
No, to that side, I don't.
Yeah, there's a detention basin back here.
Okay.
On the other side
Is the septic?
Is the septic,
is
yeah. Or
a
the,
pump house, and then the septic's up here.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I was just trying to avoid the whole
Yeah,
thing.
sure, no, that's a good plan.
No, we thought of that,
Penny?
I think for those of us who have been around for 100 years, when that land was originally given to RCAP, it was with the understanding, but never put in writing, that the Bolton Senior Center would live there. Never was it envisioned that they would need parking for the people who came. And hindsight is great. But basically, if we cannot resolve those parking space issues, there will be no senior center there, because there will no place for people to park to get there.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to, basically. If we cannot get some resolution on that, and I don't know whether it's here or where it is, or whether it's through agreements, but then you can't have a senior center there because people can't get there. So then, unfortunately, the Board of Selectmen have to come up with a place for the senior center. And I'm not sure figuring out this solution might be a lot easier, and I absolutely agree with Don that this is the logical way to do it.
Yeah, I think.
It's a win-win for the RCAP, because they get more
I
space.
mean, I can't see any circumstance where the town should be given the easement or the town should own the land. I don't see any outcome where that's a viable solution. I mean, it's gotta be either an easement to Bolton Country Manor or deed it to them. So it's their property. And then how the 15 spaces get constructed is a separate matter.
I'm sorry, how they get constructed is a separate matter, and how it gets paid, or who does it, or, I don't understand.
Sure, oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, is that still open, that?
It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a town responsibility to construct the 15 spaces. Maybe it's a fundraising effort. I mean, there are other options, but, the one option of the town owning it, I can't see that as a viable option in any outcome.
So and I can see where you're coming from, except the fact that the long-term consequences is if we don't get it done somehow, and we don't get it resolved in a rational, reasonable way, which I'm sure Don is working on, you've got another bigger problem, because now you've got a lot of seniors up in arms, and I don't think I'd want to be on your side of the
But
table.
Penny, you do know, I mean, there isn't any money lying around to build a parking lot. So, it can't, no, I mean.
It's 15,000, it's estimated maybe to $15,000 to $20,000.
But Terry, you were on the advisory board.
Yes.
I mean, we just can't find money to build a parking lot. It has to be built into the budget, and something like this, which would have to be approved by, at minimum, be brought before the town.
Right, we're in the process of, I mean, this is budget season. It's the time that, if it needs to be considered, it's the time that it should be considered. And because Condyne can speak for themselves, but I don't think this is being done before fiscal 2016. So it actually turns out that it's a good time to be looking for money,
Well,
because it
but-
happens to be
And that's
season.
true, but, I want to hear from RCAP.
Well,
I mean, RCAP can't just say we don't have the money. I don't accept that. So, they wash their hands of it, now it's the three of us have to.
And from a business perspective, RCAP has a current revenue stream because we have a lease with them for our senior center, which
it's not money.
Which arguably could go away if it's no longer viable
Right.
for seniors. I mean, we can't break the lease, but we would renew it. So then, for the sake of them funding a parking lot, they would lose a tenant, that, a long-term tenant. So I think that's a conversation that I hope to have with RCAP as well.
Right.
I don't mean to be flip, but it is possible in the future that Condon's building might make a better senior center, because I think at one point they said they were gonna have a lower level.
Well, but you don't want that. We don't want that lower level. I mean,
How do you know?
well,
It might be bigger, nicer, and have a whole lot of parking. I mean, I don't think that you should lock yourself into thinking the senior center will always be at Bolton Manor.
no, definitely we don't want that, Kia. I mean, we want a standalone senior center at some point in time, but I think at this time we deal with what we have, and it seems to me what Patty was saying, the 15 spaces is a much easier solution than finding a senior center. And I just want to know, in the conclusion, Mr. Chairman, where you are on this. And I mean, Dawn is meeting next week, which I didn't know, so that's good. And board is coming back together on the 19th, and maybe, hopefully Condon will be there. When do you make a decision? My fear is similar to what happened years ago when the manor was built, that it just doesn't get resolved with it before everything gets approved. I want it to be part of the approval process.
Well, I don't think we're going to be approving anything tonight.
Good. Okay.
And not because, there's not support for the overall idea, but just because we're still missing some of the pieces here. And so maybe next time we know, and we sort of, thrown out this idea, which Condon doesn't have to have any interest in at all, but cutting off the piece to avoid the sort of easement, indemnification, all those issues. But if they were inclined to do that, I guess that there's still, for site plan review purposes, maybe that I don't know that has to get resolved, but to the extent we negotiate with RCAP and, or maybe present something to town meeting if folks want to do that. But I do see, the concern that we're, for the town's temporary use of this facility, we're paying for a permanent improvement to the RCAP facility, but, maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't make sense.
I mean, personally, I don't see, timing-wise, I don't see a permanent resolution to this prior to the site plan review process being completed, just because the site plan review process is going to be completed much more quickly than this is probably going to be resolved. I mean, RCAP's coming out next week to take a look, and then I'm certain there's going to have to be reporting back to senior management and some discussion done there, and that's out of our hands, so I don't know that we'll have an official answer from RCAP before you are reasonably going to want to conclude the site plan review process.
Right, I mean, do we even know if RCAP even want that to happen, regardless of who did it?
I don't know. Yeah. That's why that's why we are bringing someone out to view the property. They're familiar with the property, obviously, but to discuss the concept and see exactly where it would go, and I'm sure they're doing their homework in advance as to what potentially there could be, what cost it could be, and what funds they may or may not have at their availability, at their disposal.
But nothing is going to be built here very quickly, it sounds like, if you're still looking for an operator. Right? So our current imperfect system can continue for all.
We can continue.
I think, but it's also important to acknowledge that it benefits Condon to have the senior center there too. I mean, it dovetails beautifully with having an assisted living facility, those people can take advantage of the senior center. So everybody's kind of working towards the same end.
Mhm.
So hopefully we can find a resolution.
Yeah, we just have this, the issue of, we have talked to operators and, you know, this permit kind of comfort level, you know, that we're trying to get, you know, to help us market and move forward, so that's
Well,
kind
I
of.
mean, have they looked at the conceptual drawings and said, yeah, that's what we would like, or, you know, at least for the exterior, that the design review committee would be, has reviewed?
Yes,
Or would
yeah,
they, or have they said, well, yeah, but we want different colors, or different windows, or different whatever, and, you know, which would require them to go back for review?
In general, they agree with the style and design. Again, we, just like any board, if it's something that's big enough change, we know we have to come back for it.
Mark, when is your next meeting with the design review board?
They have a follow-up meeting on the 10th, and they're creating their report from that meeting. I don't even believe I'm invited to that. They're just kind of putting that together. And last night at planning board, I continued because they stated in the past that they needed the design review board review to continue discussions. So, but I do know they did have discussions while I was there. But we're definitely going to be back in front of them on the 19th to pick up where we went.
Well, maybe playing devil's advocate, I mean, it looks like there's gonna be a significant amount of paving, grading, and altering of the existing roadway that's going in, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, from this point here, you know, the existing road comes through here, and this is parking here, yeah, from that point on, all the way over to this point.
So then theoretically, one concept is, well, you're in there doing all that other work anyway.
Right.
You could do that and deed it over to RCAP for some, maybe $1 consideration, who knows? But I mean, whatever Condyne thinks is reasonable. So I mean, but the equipment will be mobilized there to do it already. Certainly, economies of scale, you're gonna get the best economies on a scale if it's done while everything else is there.
Right, as opposed to a separate project. So, I mean, that might be something, the easiest solution to this is to just, you know, you guys do it, because we're talking about a strip there, as opposed to everything else that needs to be done.
And then perhaps...
And that was exactly my point as well, economies of scale, the equipment's already there, just get it done.
And then perhaps because of economies of scale, perhaps Condyne could put some, you know, if they didn't want to just, you know, turn it over to RCAP, then they could put some, they could affix some value to it that then RCAP could budget for and reimburse them for, you know.
So you don't want to build a sidewalk, but you're happy to have them pave all?
No, I want them to build a sidewalk on their property, not on town property. And if they want to
pave this and then pretty much.
No, it was just a suggestion. I'm not writing any letter that says that.
It didn't make it into the minutes yet either.
But there is something to be said for, if you're in there with all that equipment, this is a small piece, and probably could go a long way to calm a lot of people down.
And you know, if you advertise that, how many businesses would want to come into that building because of the generosity?
And, yeah, the people in town.
And you thought the planning board was tough.
Just creative thinking, that's all.
That's well, we're running considerably behind here. I mean, other than the site plan review piece, is there anything that this board thinks that we still need? I mean, that's the only piece that I see.
From my perspective, no, because I mean, we all attended a hearing when you were in front of the planning board where we got all this information. So, I mean, you know, conceptually, I'm okay with everything, but I think, you know, getting their input would be beneficial. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't.
Yeah. I actually watched the hearing for that night. I did watch it. But yeah, I mean, I think conceptually, this is
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
that's
good.
great.
And, yeah, I think we just need to, there's just a few details to be kind of sorted out here, and then,
All right, well, do we want to continue this? Our next meeting, we're short of members.
We're short of members, it's
So-
the 20th, and we're short of members.
So beyond that, it's, what, December 4th?
Yes.
And we should probably set a time certain for that.
We could do, which end of that? We could do 7 PM, and it could be...
Put it in front of the other things we've got there?
Because we already know we're inviting advisory in that night, and we are inviting our school committee members in that night.
But I mean, I think that the continuation just should be fairly short.
Yeah, no, that's right.
yeah, and then we should have all the other reports available. Okay, I'll move that we continue this to December 4th at 7 PM.
Thank you.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Not exactly what you wanted.
The next item on our agenda is a recommendation from the police chief to appoint Casey M. Poole as a full-time police officer.
Standing room only in here tonight.
Yes, well, no, sorry to keep you.
I'd like to introduce Casey Poole to you. Dawn has met her already in the interview process. Well, thank you for hearing us tonight. As you know, one of our full-time officers accepted a position with the Concord Police Department, so that left us with an opening. And we did an extensive review process. We had 46 people apply for the full-time position. Of those 46, 12 we found suitable. And out of those 12, we interviewed 5, of which Casey was one. Casey comes to us from the University of Massachusetts, it's Salem Campus Police Department. We're experienced with them. As you know, we are very partial to campus police officers. We like the community policing aspect of officers that have a campus police background. Casey has an outstanding background. I'll highlight some of the things that really stood out in her background to us. She's currently working on her master's degree in criminal justice from Lowell University, University of Lowell. She had worked with the Middlesex County Sheriff's Department as a temporary officer there, so she's had experience within prisons and in the correctional system. She has extensive training in specialized areas. She is a DRE, a drug recognition expert, which is an extremely difficult, if you remember, you've got Washington that was with our department, extremely difficult position to obtain. A lot of studying, a lot of hours. A drug recognition expert assists the officers in recognizing people who are operating motor vehicles under the influence of drugs, which is much more difficult than identifying people who are drunk driving. It's really a specialized field, it requires a lot of training. She's certified in that. She's got extensive experience in that. She's cobweb certified, which means she's certified on police mountain bikes, and as you know, we like to use the mountain bikes around the schools and in the conservation areas. She's a certified RAD instructor, that's Rape and Aggression Defense Instructor, which we have a program right now, both in high school and in conjunction with Stowe Police Department, teaching women how to defend themselves against aggressive attackers. And I had sent you a copy of her resume, the initial package. She's also a certified sexual assault investigator, which again is a very specialized school. It's separate from regular police training. We currently have 2 officers on the department that are sexual assault investigators, and we do get them, and it would be very helpful to have her additional experience. So I'm asking you to appoint her as a full-time police officer to help us fill that opening and add an additional dimension to our team.
No, I got the information that you put together, very, very impressive.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, it sounds like she'll be a great addition. So,
We're very lucky to get somebody with Casey's background.
yeah.
A very strong interest in community policing and community involvement, which is, as you know, something we're very active in. And it's what we look for in police officers, so we're very glad that she had an interest in our department.
Super. Yeah, excellent.
And Bolton's a little bit closer than Salem.
Ride your bike
So if the board could make a motion to
appoint Casey as a full-time police officer.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Good to see you.
For the sake of reporters, can we get your spelling of your name and where you live, please?
Sure, it's Casey, C-A-S-E-Y, Hoole, H-O-O-L-E, and I live in Littleton.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right.
All right.
Next item on our agenda is
Speed it up.
the always exciting administrative report.
I have 9 or 10 slides I'd like to put up. Update on Minuteman, just very quickly, we had a building committee meeting Monday night, and we had the latest versions of the renderings for the different options, and let me just say that while conceptually or theoretically, the architect is working on 3 plans, which is new, existing with a renovation, or just, existing with expansion, or existing, renovating what's there for existing. The architect said if we go with renovating just what's there, nobody's gonna like it, including them, so they're strongly trying to dissuade everybody away from that. The student population, as I said before, is 628. We will be meeting again in 2 weeks where we should have the final design, pretty much. So, you've seen the eye chart before that has all the different colors in it. They've modified that. One of the challenges, which I don't think anybody in the room had anticipated, was while it's all going to be in Lexington, there's been an assumption that they'd be able to draw utility services from Lincoln, and nobody really tied off that loose end. So somebody needs to go to talk to Lincoln about that, or else that could really impact the design again. So I'm assuming that that's all going to be worked out, but it's an open question. The communications meeting scheduled for last night was canceled due to lack of communication, I guess, on someone's part. So that has now been rescheduled to next Wednesday. So I will be able to get an update at that and be able to report back on the 20th, and I will send an update to any selectmen who can't make the meeting on the 20th, so that you don't fall behind. And I would like to give you a reminder of the Veterans Day brunch, which is this Sunday at Davis Hall at 11:30. We did it for the first time last year as part of the 275th celebration. It was so well received by the veterans, and just such a smash that we did put money into the budget to continue the program, and I hope it's done every year. I will be there. Some of the staff is actually preparing food and serving, and I was asked yesterday if at all possible to try and see if State Representative Harold Naughton from Clinton could attend. As you may or may not know, Harold has done, he's been in the military for several years and has, in the JAG Corps, and has been in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I texted him last night, and on, as I said, very short notice, and he very graciously responded today and said that he would be happy to attend, so he will be there.
Oh, that's great. We're not even in his district, huh?
That's right.
That's great.
That's right. I said, I realize this is not your district, but, if you'd like to, if you're not doing anything Sunday morning at 11:30, come on over. And he very graciously accepted, so he will be part of the speaking program.
Great.
And there is an ecumenical church service at 10 o'clock that will be focused on veteran appreciation. So it sounds like a very nice day. I'm looking forward to it. The other thing that I have under my report is the update on the Department of Transportation. Transition of responsibility is the term that I prefer, because they already have control of 117, they're just not responsible for the upkeep of it. So, as you know, we have received their plan. It's broken down into a 1 to 5 year plan and a 5 to 15 year plan. And without going into the detail now, I will say we will have the PDF, which is very large, up on the website. I'm going to say mid next week. The goal is probably the day after Veterans Day. We should have it up. And we will get an announcement out on news and announcements that people should feel free to familiarize themselves with it. And as long as I'm talking about logistics, it would be my recommendation that the selectmen have their, I don't know if it's technically not a public hearing, but they're meeting to discuss the details of this on Thursday, December 18th. I would suggest the Houghton Building because I would anticipate a larger than normal crowd. I've already confirmed that DOT personnel are available to come, the right senior people, and would give the public 6 weeks to familiarize themselves with the 5 to 6 weeks to familiarize themselves with the plan, so that we can make sure people have had ample opportunity to digest it and ask whatever questions they may have. But as I said, the plan itself is divided into 1 to 5 and 5 plus to 15 years. The Public Way Safety Committee will be delighted to see that there's an emphasis on safety, there's an emphasis on bike lanes, there's an emphasis on improving the sidewalks and ADA compliance for the sidewalks. They have already stated that the portion of 117, which effectively runs, say, from Bolton Office Park down to the library, is already wide enough, so they don't see the need to do anything with that. Where they look further down 117, they talk about widening in a matter of inches to accommodate bike paths, because while this stretch would accommodate bike paths, currently further down would not, but it's just, dealing with some shoulders and that type of thing.
When you say farther down, you mean west?
Yes.
Thank you.
AKA west. And then, lost my train of thought. In the first 5 years are mainly focused on things like that. Also, the guardrail at Pond Park, which I've said in the past is in really bad shape. That would be one of their priorities, to replace that with something that's crash rated and would serve as what a guardrail is supposed to serve as. Beyond 5 years is when they start talking about work on intersections and that type of thing, whether it be at Still River or whether it be at Wattaquatic with a potential light or something like that. So I was very pleased to see the way they broke it down. I have to say that for me, and I realize I've been dealing with them more than anybody has, there was not one surprise in that plan. There wasn't anything, I don't think there's anything that I haven't already discussed with the board in one form or another, so.
They also discuss, they talk a lot about Lancaster. This is both sort of Bolton and Lancaster.
It's a corridor plan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it seems like they have more immediate problems they've noticed in Lancaster.
Oh, they do, yes.
Yeah.
Because, I want to say this in a positive way, Bolton has done a really good job in maintaining our portion of 117. To our credit, but also to our expense.
That's all you're going to say.
That's all I'm saying. So, unless you have any
No, I think that timing makes sense. We do have a lot of things now sort of keyed up for the first meeting in December. So maybe that December 18th meeting is a good time to talk about this and get public input.
And I do think that we should secure the Houghton Building, because I don't think this room is going to be large enough. So, unless you have anything else, that's all I have this evening.
No?
Any questions from the audience?
Is it possible that we might also have a second hearing? Because I do think there are a lot of people who would like to know a lot about this topic, and it strikes me that December 18th isn't the most convenient for most people.
Well, that's up.
I mean, we could certainly entertain a second one. I think you, and maybe you could take this back to folks. The state already owns the road, the state already has control of the road, and the state currently can do whatever type of improvement it wants. Them taking responsibility for the road only gives them the privilege of maintaining it and plowing it. It doesn't give them anything more because they already have it.
I think it takes away our parking lane, as I...
That is the one thing that we do not, we as a town, it's not even accurate to say we don't enforce it. It's not a law that you can't, it's not a bylaw, it's not a law of any kind that you can't park on 117 now. And they have made, it's one thing they made very clear in their proposal, that if this transfer of responsibility were to happen, they would not want to see parking on 117, which reinforces something that Chief Alfano has said for years, that it's a safety hazard to park on 117.
Well, it also tends to discourage traffic on 117 if we use it for parking, which is better. I mean, I know what the chief thinks, but really, it's a good place to park.
Well, actually, no, it's not.
We had a pretty serious
There were
accident
serious
a couple months
accidents
ago.
on
Well,
117.
that's because not enough people are using it for parking.
That's
If it was really pretty full of cars, which in general would be a good idea, especially around the library, then people wouldn't be zooming by.
Well, I work from home. And I typically, a number of times during the week, will go to the post office, the library, or whatever. Right now, there is almost no parking on 117 whatsoever. There's an occasional car, but, you know, it's not a case that there are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 cars parked on 117 in the center of town. I mean, there might be one or two. So I think the argument that, you know, parking is good, people don't avail themselves of it, and there really isn't a parking lane there. There's just not enough width.
There always was a parking lane until Harold mistakenly painted the lanes in the center
That was the
so wide.
subcontractor mistake.
The subcontractor, excuse me. And Harold has assured me that the next time it is painted, he is restoring the parking lanes.
We could make it
And the
more.
parking lanes are very important to a lot of the homeowners there because, number one, we do need parking. Like Alice's neighbor, Callista's house, they always park out there every night. And, I mean, a lot of us can't park in our back because we have septics and we have small lots. And I think people need to think through the repercussions that, you know, if you take the parking lanes away, many of us will want extra parking in the front of our houses, will want...
But you're not parking there now.
Yes, we are.
No, you're not. Come on. No, I'm sorry, you're not.
And also,
Keith.
now when people are parking there, they're parking with one wheel on the sidewalk. So, I mean, there's a lot that could change if you, I mean, we can go into it at the hearing.
Right.
But I'm just saying there will be major changes if we lose the parking lane. Number one, people will go faster. Number two, you will have people parking in their front, you know, in front. And it seems funny, we've gone to the trouble of making this overlay to have businesses parking back. You're gonna have more residential people parking in front eventually. And, you know, more fences up. I mean, you're gonna really change the look of the town center, and I mean, there are a whole lot of other reasons, and a lot of people are very concerned about it, which we'll get into. But I also want to I'm very interested in seeing the report, because I think there are a lot of things we don't know. And it's not just a case of money. I mean, we'd like to know a lot of what the plans are long-term and the likelihood of those plans. Because I think everyone knows that the state usually promises a lot, and sometimes they deliver, sometimes they don't. They didn't deliver very much on the intersection at 495 and Sugar Road. That's been a very big disappointment to us. And I think, you know...
That's actually part of the plan, the next step for that is part of that plan.
Is to remedy it?
Well, to improve it.
But there's no real backup though for what the state says they're gonna plan to do. And there's no, enforcement to anything. It's not a contract.
No, it's not a contract.
So it's just something that they say, kind of like what Kinder Morgan says or something. They send a few people who may or may not be authorized to say something, and maybe there are plans that have been brought up, but there's no, they just operate, they don't make an agreement, a two-sided agreement, like a contract.
No, it's definitely not a contract. All I can say is the plan has been endorsed by the senior management and DOT, but there's no contract.
Well, that doesn't do us much good. But, I mean, even the, when we take down 715, they may see that as an opportunity to expand a lane there. And,
The light would be good for traffic dampening, right?
What?
Wouldn't the light slow down traffic?
The light
I mean,
will
that's-
accelerate
then the light
traffic.
might slow down traffic.
It's not gonna, a yellow light is going to make people drive just as erratically as they do now at around the Clinton Savings Bank.
You can't get through town from one side to the other from 2:30 on.
No. And the parking lane, the elimination of parking lane that would allow them to put in a turning lane at Wattaquatic, there really is a turning lane there now. I mean,
Except for
people
big
go
trucks.
through, most people pull over to the right and very cautiously go through the intersection. And, once you make it official, they'll be bombing through the intersection. They'll see a yellow light and they will accelerate. I mean, that's what they do near Clinton Savings Bank. The break in the traffic for the new light at Sugar Road, now that there are 2 lanes there, has really encouraged very erratic behavior, which I think you would see at Wattaquatic if they paint 2 lanes and put in a light. I mean, I don't have a problem with the light, actually. The light is fine.
The one improvement we'll see soon at Sugar Road, once their final analysis comes back is, and I've been fighting for this for probably, 3 years, but it's been enabled by what they did down there recently last year, is that we're gonna be able to get a green arrow for that left turning lane under Sugar Road.
I can get home.
Yes.
Finally, Mary.
Okay. I'm anxious to see the report, so I'm not going to sit there. But as far as parking, there is parking in the center of town, and the subcontractor did make the parking lanes narrower. And if you notice the white stripes that have been placed in the center, that is to show the subcontractor where they're to place those lines. Parking is a traffic calming method. I mean, it's in the books as being used as such. Also, as a member of the Bolton Historical Society, we do depend on parking in front of the building. We do have a driveway, but we don't have a lot of spaces to accommodate a lot of cars. I also think with all these public buildings, one of the things that irks me a lot is when events are held at the Houghton Building and news and announcements stated. There's always stated no parking on the road. And that is not true, and people should be allowed to park on the road. And it does create a better sense of community, is when you have people who can park on the road to access buildings on the street. So there is a good side to parking on a road.
We also use it as overflow at the library. Library there's really not enough parking at the library if there's any event going on there. So people get down and park on the road.
All right, well, no, we may well need a second meeting, so but let's start off with the first one, so we aren't necessarily going to
Well,
be
is this meeting with somebody or just to look at some plans?
They've given us a report that they're going to be there, and everyone will have seen the report, and we'll have comments. I mean, you already have some ideas and concerns, but you may have others. They may have answers, and they may not have answers. But that's
Well,
what.
if it's like the situation, like the meeting you had with Kinder Morgan, and you stopped me from pushing them about the size of the pipeline, because they promised they would get back. You probably want to schedule a second meeting with them in which if they promise something that they'll get back to, there'll be a time certain for them to actually deliver it.
Al, everyone in this room needs to understand the potential improvements that the state wants to do. They can do them right now.
But can they stop us from parking?
The one thing that they probably can't stop us at the moment is parking.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is the one thing that we still have.
I understand, Al, but everyone seems to be thinking that this is some massive thing that gives the state carte blanche to do whatever they want. It doesn't. What it's giving us is transferring the maintenance and the plowing of 117 to the state. Yes, and parking.
Then
Okay,
why
that's-
the report? I mean, if they could have done it, then why haven't they done it?
Why haven't they done it?
So there's a little more to this.
No, but you're missing the point. The point is not what they're going to do or not what they're going to do. The point is allowing the state to take over the plowing and the maintenance of the road so that the town doesn't have to pay for it. That's what this is all about.
And
How
would
much
they do
does it
a
really
would
cost
they
us?
do a better job at
A lot.
at
A
it
lot.
than what we would do?
Well,
A
I'm
lot.
just hoping that
Why
the
did you
town
say that?
isn't driven by this financial, we're not gonna have to pay for plowing and paving as the reason, the sole reason for moving forward with this. Because if the state could have done all this stuff anyway, then why haven't they?
It's not a case of why haven't they? You know, they'll do what they want to do when they want to do it, okay? But they're looking at what the long-term responsibilities of what they're potentially going to do, irrespective of whether we give them the ability to plow and to maintain.
Well, they may have to go through ultimately, they can do what they want. They could go through eminent domain proceedings, and they could spend 15 years trying to, do what they did to Route 2. In fact, really trash the town. But chances are,
Al, please. I mean,
they're not going to.
They're not going to do any of that.
Right, but I don't see why we should, I don't.
The short answer is they don't budget or plan for any of the infrastructure stuff now because they don't have to. But they see their mission as creating as safe an environment and flowing traffic as efficiently as possible. So if we do turn, as Stan said, that responsibility over to them, then they will be budgeting for that, where they know right now it's on our dime. And we also know that, and I use the intersection at 110 as a perfect example. When their engineer looked at that hardware down there at the traffic light, he said, "I've never seen anything that old." We are struggling to get replacement parts for that, and someday we're not going to be able to.
Right.
And we're also going to say, we can't afford the $1 or so it's going to take to completely redesign and redo all that stuff and put in all the new hardware. So they see it as their mission to create a safe environment where we can't.
But to some extent, smooth traffic flow and safe environment are conflicting goals.
Can I ask what the procedure would be after the hearing and who ultimately will be making this choice? Is it going to be a vote of the selectmen, or is it going to go to town meeting, or how do you propose that this major decision will be made? And at some point, would you entertain the idea that you exempt the historic district that is only, what, a mile and a half of the road?
You know, I think it, I'm not sure. Is this a town meeting issue? I'm not sure.
No, town council has said it's not a town meeting.
Yeah, but I think certainly, you have the example of, West Acton, where it's a state road that sort of stops for the center there. I guess as contrast with Harvard Center, where it's all state road all the way through.
No, actually, I don't think it is in Harvard. No, it goes right up to the general store, 110 stops for a little bit. It says through, I think when it says throughway, stops here, That's
No,
an
so,
indication.
but anyway, I mean, I think those are
So
things
there
we
may
could
be a
talk
couple
about.
precedences
Yeah.
of being
Oh,
able
sure.
to do that.
Yeah,
so.
sure. Yeah, so,
But we're not gonna solve it tonight, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and
I
would you
think-
also be prepared to sort of enlighten us what the, if you intend to save a lot of money, how that money would be allocated? I mean, would we be having a staff reduction at DPW, or would we, you know, have less plowing, or would we have extra money to, you know, do extra
Pay the
projects?
senior center parking lot?
I mean, what's the plan?
Well, I think you have to realize, and we're getting far afield here, is that, you know, a lot of the cost in plowing is the sand and the salt. And the town does use quite a few contractors in order to do that. I mean, we do not have a huge DPW staff that plows all the roads exclusively in Bolton, and that we don't have contractors. So where you will see savings, and this is off the top of my head, is you will see savings in the cost of sand and salt, which go up, and you'll see a dramatic reduction in, or a reduction, I say dramatic, but there'll be a reduction in the use of contractors.
There would be a significant reduction in the snow and ice deficit that we run every year and that we have to fund. And there would also be, we would be able to reprogram our Chapter 90 money so that we can get to a lot more town roads and repave them. Then, for all intents and purposes, for the last 2 years, we used probably, I would guess, 90% of our Chapter 90 money on Route 17.
Right,
So
just
we would be able to
maintain it.
We'd be able to reprogram it and get a lot more bang for our buck on other roads if we did that.
Since you brought it up, there are towns such as Harvard and Carlisle that don't use salt. There's a way to save on salt right there. And not only that, but the roadside looks a lot better because the overspray doesn't kill all of the roadside shrubberies except poison ivy.
Well, that's a different question.
Well, I know, but it's just, it goes to where the so-called saving is gonna go. There's not gonna be a staff reduction at DPW. Is there?
No.
Well, right.
All right, you know, I think we, as far as the town administrator's report in scheduling this meeting, I think we're well beyond it. So our next item on our agenda is Board of Selectmen business. Review and vote on right of first refusal for 2 affordable housing units. And these 2 units are, one is at 38 Pondside Drive, where the maximum resale price is $153,800, and the town, I guess, has the option of purchasing that unit if we were to decide to.
Yes.
And there's a second unit for sale, or will be for sale, it's Sunset Ridge, and that's unit 34, and the price is $157,182. I don't know, Stan, have we ever done this? Has the town ever purchased one of these?
I don't recall that we ever have.
Yeah. All right, well, no, it's,
We don't want to be in the real estate business.
yeah. It's interesting we have the option, but I don't see the need to exercise it.
Then with the action of a motion, you can decline our right of first
I will
refusal.
move that we exercise or decline our right of first refusal here and pass on purchasing 38 Pondside and or 34 Sunset Ridge.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are now going to go into executive session pursuant to MGL 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the police and dispatch unions, on the basis that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town of Bolton, and we will not be coming back into open session.
You have a motion to go.
I will move that we go into executive session.
I will second that. All those in favor?
All those in favor, and I guess we could, you could call the roll.
Roll call.
We only do that when you're here.
Spray.
Yes.
Delaney, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
That's not true, we do, even when he's not here, he has a screen.
That's right, the night you weren't here, we still,